Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of Whip's Football Film Room. It's been a while since my last video. We're now a lot closer to the start of the 2022 football season. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. This may be one of the most anticipated seasons for me, since there'll be a ton of new opportunities to bring informative and entertaining content to you guys. Today, we're going to be doing a little more teaching instead of a film breakdown. Since we're going to take this channel for the long haul, I figured we should start building some foundational knowledge about the game and discuss things rarely talked about on TV. In this video, we will examine how a defense is built from the front to the back. By the end of the video, you'll understand how each level of defense impacts the other and some of the strengths and weaknesses of specific defensive alignments. If you remember from episode 1, I said that football is a numbers game. Well, football can also be described as a battle for space. We use numbers to describe where space is being given and taken. This is an important concept to remember, as whoever wins the battle for space is likely going to win the game. A defense's main goal is to take away as much space for the offense to operate as possible. Let's see how a defensive coordinator will position his players to accomplish this. Now, there are many ways to align defensive players when given a basic 5-wide offensive line. We're going to discuss what's called the 4-3 defensive formation. The 4-3 stands for 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers. First, you want to place your guys who are closest to the ball at the start of the play, the defensive line. The 4 linemen are your 2 defensive ends and your 2 defensive tackles. Include your linebackers, and this completes the defensive front. A front is simply a term used when describing where the D-line and linebackers align in relation to the offensive line. Before we get further, let's discuss how we label sections of space in football. In between each offensive lineman, there are gaps. The A-gap, B-gap, and C-gap for simplicity. The defense wants to have a man cover each gap so the offense has no space to run to. In the basic 5-wide offensive line, there are 6 total gaps. The defense needs at least 6 players to fill them. The 4-3 chooses to align a tackle in the A-gap, a tackle in the B-gap, and the ends in the C-gaps. The linebackers then come into the picture and fill the open A-gap and open B-gap, and you have 1 extra linebacker who has no gap responsibility. This is now a 7-man box, meaning 7 players within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage and in between the ends of the offensive line. When we expand the view, we then see that the offense is in a 2x2 set, meaning 2 receivers on each side of the field. Aligning like this spreads the field since the offense has more guys to attack more space horizontally. To take away that space, defenses will push a linebacker out to help cover one of the slot receivers. Add in the safeties and corners, and now you have a complete defense. This is simple, but there are nuances to alignments based on how space changes on the field. Next time you're watching a game, pay attention to where the football is spotted before a play begins. You'll notice that the ball is placed somewhere between or on the hashes before each play, and this dictates where space needs to be taken. Let's say the ball is on the left hash, so more space is to the right side of the field than the left. Since more space is to the right side of the field, defenses want to align in a way that defends that side the best. I mentioned the 4-3 front as a way for defenses to align. Well, we're going to add another word to that term and call it the 4-3 over front. Over because the B-gap tackle, aka the 3 tech, and the strong side linebacker are aligned over the field. If the ball was on the right hash and the defense is in an over front, then the formation would just be flipped to the left side, which would then be the field side. The over front protects the field well because it creates barriers to the field. By aligning a 3-tech tackle to the field, it becomes more difficult for the offense to run their favorite gap, the B-gap. The over front also allows the strong side linebacker a full cover down on the strong side slot receiver. A cover down means he doesn't have a primary gap responsibility, freeing him to focus on covering the slot receiver away from the box. It's very important for the strong side linebacker to have a full cover down. The field slot receiver is the offense's most dangerous receiver because he's the shortest throw for the quarterback and has the most space to run to if left uncovered. He cannot be given more space than necessary. Looking to the left side of the field, aka the boundary, we see there is no linebacker aligned over the slot. This is because the weak side linebacker here is still involved in the run fit as the B-gap player. What sucks for him is that in most coverage schemes, he is still responsible for covering the weak slot receiver. We say that he is the conflict player because of the double responsibilities. Since this side of the field has less space, the defense is comfortable leaving him in conflict because it's easier for him to cover that amount of space once he reads the play. Offenses will run RPOs at the weak side linebacker to take advantage of his conflict. Run-pass options are plays that have a run-blocking scheme with a pass route mixed in. If the conflict player steps up to play the run, then the quarterback will throw the passing route to the vacated grass behind him. If he drops or sits to cover the receiver, then the quarterback will hand the ball off to attack that open B gap. By reading and reacting to the conflict player, the offense creates a numbers advantage because that linebacker is essentially taken out of the play once the decision is made. Again, defenses are comfortable with this trade-off only when aligned like this and the conflict player is to the boundary side. Let's examine one alternative to the 4-3 over front, the 4-3 under front. With the under front, the B gap defensive tackle is now set to the boundary. Once the linebackers cover down on their gaps, you'll see that there is nobody aligned over the field slot receiver. The conflict player is also now to the field, meaning the offense's RPOs and quick passes are a lot more dangerous since there is more space to run and pass to. The under front has its advantages against different personnel looks, but that's beyond the scope of this video. So we've discussed how the front affects the run fit and linebacker responsibilities, but fronts also have an effect on coverage with the secondary. In reality, there are 8 gaps the defense needs to account for. The 2 A gaps, 2 B gaps, 2 C gaps, and the 2 D gaps or alleys. D gaps are created when a tight end is on the line of scrimmage, and the alley is the area between the receivers and the box. The offense can scheme up runs that reach the D gaps or alleys, so defenses have to assign players to fit them. The 4-3 front has 7 men in the box, so an additional 8th player is needed. These assignments usually follow the defensive backs in what is called support, force, or run force. It is their job to force a run back inside to the D-line and linebackers. So just like the weak side linebacker, whichever safety is assigned the alley also becomes a conflict player in some respect. Well, safeties typically are your last line of defense and are responsible for covering deep routes and pass coverage, so asking them to do that and fit the run can be difficult. To mitigate that, coaches will choose to run a single high safety coverage like cover 3 that asks the run-fitting safety to cover a shallow zone instead of a deep zone. In cover 3, the safety will come down from his deep alignment to cover the hook zone or the flat zone, thus being in better position to play run force. From a single high alignment, defenses can also run cover 1, which is a man coverage. Cover 1 offers some flexibility because the safety can spin down to cover the hole zone, come down for a blitz, or man up on a receiver. All these options are better for him to fit his run responsibility because he's closer to the line of scrimmage. In some cases, the safety spinning down can also add to the box count, further helping defend the run. Let's say a coach wanted to keep his safeties in their deep alignment to allow more players to cover short routes underneath. Then he'll run a cover 2 and have the corners play the flat zone, allowing them to better read and react to runs towards D gaps or alleys. In both coverages, the deep zone players are taken out of the primary 8 gap run fit. All this being said, let's backtrack to how alignment affects the space being given and taken on the field. You'll notice that the weak side safety and overfronts will often be a couple yards closer to the line of scrimmage than the strong side safety. Just like the weak side linebacker, the weak side safety has less space to cover. Also consider that the conflict player is beneath him as opposed to the linebacker with a cover down. These factors make it so the weak side safety will typically have the 8th gap or alley responsibility. Sometimes he won't be so lucky and will be asked to play run force and a deep zone, so for him it'll make more sense to be a bit closer to the line of scrimmage than the strong side safety who isn't in the primary run fit. Now, some coaches are uncomfortable with having defensive backs be primary run defenders. DBs are meant to be coverage players, so they'll be smaller and lesser tacklers than your average linebacker. So instead of running a 4-3 personnel package that creates a 7-man box, some coaches opt for a 4-4, 5-3, or 3-5 defensive formation. These personnel packages create 8-man boxes by replacing a safety with a linebacker or D lineman. Then a defense will have 8 players better suited to fitting the run. Each of those packages has their own set of unique fronts that the defense can line up in. Football is a very flexible sport with many ways to accomplish the same goal, taking or gaining space. In this video, I show you just one of the ways defenses like to take away space. Hopefully now you understand the complexities of building a defense from the front to the back end. It's important that coaches marry the defensive front and the coverage behind it. Not understanding how one affects the other could lead to a defense getting torched. Next time you're in practice, playing in a game, or watching one, I challenge you to think about the small things, like how the 3 techniques alignment is going to change what the safeties can and can't do during a play. It may seem confusing at first, and you're likely to be wrong about what you think you're seeing anyway, but over time you'll develop a greater appreciation for the game and coaches alike.